Having lived the majority of my life in Miami, Florida, I'm no stranger to hurricanes. So when I think back to all the times we boarded up the house, went out to make lines at the gas station for fuel, and loaded up on batteries, I particularly remember the difficulties of losing power in your home. My parents recently spent over a week without power due to Hurricane Irma. So what if I told you that in the future, a hurricane might actually be good news for keeping the lights on? We currently have many ways of producing energy through renewable resources like the sun, wind, and thermal. But could we really harness the massive energy of a hurricane? Neil deGrasse Tyson seems to think so. Here's what he said in an interview on the Today Show.
I'm tired of looking at photos of countless thousands of cars exiting a city because a hurricane is coming. We're the engineers and scientists saying, instead of running away from the city that's about to be destroyed by this hurricane, let me figure out a way to tap the cyclonic energy of this hurricane to drive the power needs of the city that it's otherwise going to destroy.
Well, here at FutureNow, we're going to take a deeper look at that possibility. Let's start with how exactly a hurricane gets its energy. It is helpful to think of a hurricane almost like a heat engine. When the ocean is very hot, it actually begins to evaporate and create warm, humid air over it. As a hurricane moves over the ocean, it siphons out the heat from the molecules in the air, which actually came from the ocean, known as latent heat. That latent heat in water from the ocean is how hurricanes gather energy. So what do hurricanes do with all this heat energy they're stockpiling? Well, they do two main things. The vast majority of that energy is used to form clouds and rain in the eye wall and rain bands. I was pretty shocked to discover just how much energy a hurricane releases to do this. According to NOAA, an average hurricane produces 0.6 inches of rain per day and releases 600 terawatts doing so. That's 600 billion kilowatts. Over the course of a year, your smartphone uses about 3.8 kilowatt hours. That means a hurricane's energy could power your phone for roughly 1.4 quadrillion years, or an average American home for 490 billion years. The rest of a hurricane's energy is released in the form of wind, also known as kinetic energy. This only releases a measly 1.5 terawatts, which means it would only charge your phone for like 3.5 trillion years. Whatever. I'm starting to see why Neil deGrasse Tyson sees a hurricane as an opportunity for cities of the future, rather than the harbingers of doom and destruction they are to us today. You might be thinking, okay, so a hurricane can power my phone essentially forever. But that's like nothing when talking about running an entire city, right? Okay, so this is the part that truly blows my mind. The amount of energy I just said is produced by an average hurricane is equal to more than 200 times the worldwide electrical generating capacity. That's right, a single hurricane has the potential to power the entire world 200 times over. In fact, just that wind energy alone is equal to about half the world's electrical generating capacity. Electrical generating capacity is the maximum electric output an electricity generator or system of generators can produce under specific conditions. The United States' total electrical generating capacity is less than 0.2% of an average hurricane. Okay, so that answers the question of whether a hurricane possesses the energy we need to run a city or even a state or country. But how the heck do we get that energy? Not surprisingly, the answer to that question is a little more complicated. For starters, you can't rely on a hurricane showing up, nor necessarily what path it's going to take, until shortly before it does. So any sort of permanent structure designed to take advantage of a hurricane's energy just won't work. But some scientists, whom have already been working on creating buildings that are able to handle the impact of hurricanes, have begun to consider why not also get these buildings to take advantage of that wind power. So they're listening to you, Neil. Take Arindam Chowdhury, for example. He runs a wind laboratory at Florida International University's International Hurricane Research Center. Chowdhury's patent-pending invention places a system of screw-like turbines along the edge of a roof, where a gutter might be, which interrupts the powerful vortexes created by a storm's wind that causes much of the damage. These turbines keep the roof of the building safe, but can also be used to gather some of the wind energy like a personal wind farm. His aerodynamic mitigation and power system, or AMPS for short, isn't yet available to consumers, but may not be far off as he is working to do just that. This is still a far cry from being able to power a whole city, as according to Chowdhury, the power produced by an amps during a blackout storm would be enough to power a small refrigerator, cell phone, laptop, and several lights for a handful of days. So at least we've got a few days covered on the cell phone. A far more viable technology, however, is being developed in Japan to capture the wind energy of a typhoon. Note, the only difference between a hurricane and a typhoon is their geographical location. A typhoon is a name for a hurricane in the western North Pacific. Chalon Energy's egg beater-shaped turbine is omnidirectional, so it doesn't matter which way the wind is blowing, and more importantly, it's designed to withstand powerful typhoons. The Chalon Energy team that developed this new turbine incorporated something called the Magnus Effect to keep the blades from spinning out of control as a traditional wind turbine would. The Magnus Effect, named after Heinrich Gustav Magnus, the German physicist who investigated it, is a phenomenon in which a cylinder rotating in a flow of air or water experiences a pulling force perpendicular to that flow. The Magnus Effect is what allows a pitcher in baseball to throw the ball in a variety of curves. The Magnus Effect is created by allowing the vertical cylinders on the turbine to spin, which then regulates the rotation of the entire system and can keep it from over-rotating during particularly strong winds. The cylinder rotation can be changed instantly, which allows the turbines to keep up with the typhoon's less predictable wind conditions and continue to generate a stable rate of power. As of July 2015, the Chalon Energy turbine could convert wind energy with 30% efficiency, about 10% less than traditional propeller-based wind turbines, but those won't work in a typhoon. It also had an electrical generating capacity of about 1 kilowatt. The company plans to start mass producing a turbine with about 10 times the capacity by 2020 when Tokyo hosts the Olympics. According to Atsushi Shimizu, the man behind the Chalon Energy wind turbine, a large enough array of these turbines could capture enough energy from a single typhoon to meet Japan's power needs for 50 years. The catch, of course, is our battery technology is not yet at the point where we could store such a massive amount of energy for later use. But that's a topic for another video. So while the future of powering a city with the energy from a hurricane remains unclear and temporarily out of reach, there is some promise for the future. Thank you very much for watching. This is FutureNow, a channel about imagining tomorrow. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please hit subscribe and thumbs up. This is the very first video on this channel, so please let me know what you thought in the comments and what future topic you'd like me to cover next. Until then, stay awesome.